Hi, my name is Austin, and I'd like to talk about a set of videos that I watched on YouTube about a year ago. They're called Damsels in Distress, Tropes versus Women in Video Games, and they came from a channel called Feminist Frequency, made by a woman named Anita Sarkeesian. And when these videos first came out, they were met with two kinds of retaliation. The first kind of retaliation was by video game enthusiasts, who were mostly men and a couple of women, actually, and they were they seemed like they were mostly offended by the things that Sarkeesian was mentioning about the different characters from beloved video game series, as well as making some bold accusations against the game developers themselves without any sort of real hard evidence. And I'm not going to lie, I was one of those people that wanted to respond almost immediately and tell her that she was completely wrong, she had no idea what she was talking about, and that she should get off YouTube and everything. But it's because of the second kind of retaliation that I decided to hold my tongue and wait till I could say something a little bit more constructive and more discussion based rather than what was turning out to be somewhat of like a bashing sort of thing. And the second type of retaliation that I was talking about is what I call feminist bashing. And feminist bashing is where a feminist tries to interpret or analyze some form of media or some other product within our society, like a norm or something, and is met with severe backlash from the society to reestablish the social norm. So they're trying to like push it back into place rather than have this sort of like other idea that could possibly throw off the social norm itself. So, with that said, she Sarke, Anita Sarkeesian had mentioned how the second kind of retaliation had escalated to a point where it was completely ridiculous. Um, she mentioned in several interviews how she was constantly harassed, how she was sent death threats, and also that most of her social media accounts on different websites were being hacked constantly. And so I wanted to wait until all of that died down so that I could, and that I knew, and until I knew more about the feminist perspective before I could um, actively talk about it. So after a year of studying different feminist principles as well as theory and activism that goes into it as well, I think I have somewhat of an unbiased opinion, but still at the same point that can be sort of controversial because this isn't so much of a discussion as pointing out the flaws in her argument and sort of the essentialist hegemonic ideas that she presents without any sort of backing or any sort of idea of what other arguments that could be placed against sort of the opinions that she has. And so this video series, I will divide into three parts that discusses each of the parts that were part of her video series. But before we get into any of that, I'd like to mention one thing that she mentions throughout every single one of the videos, and that is that she wants to follow a systemic big picture perspective throughout these critical analyses. Now, the issue that I have with this is that a big picture analysis is to see how some sort of institution trickles sort of influential powers upon us and sort of creates this sort of ideology of our society around us. Now, the issue with that is that she doesn't really do this. She sort of over analyzes each of the details in every single aspect of the game and sort of like tries to tweak it so that it's towards her argument versus actually showing how versus to show how women are actually portrayed and how women have changed over time and sort of like this overall perspective. It's sort of like it's just separating each and every single time period and then creating some sort of generalization rather than acknowledging that it's already a generalization and that you should see it more as like a change over time. So without any further delay, let's get into the first part of the video series.